I was sent to execute a CDC officer in the maintenance in San Quentin. Went there with a gun, pulled it out, he would have been done. Cardenales would have handled it. They sent a Cardenal over there and boom, 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 boom. If the Mexican Mafia doesn't validate you, then you're not validated. Now, I mean, that took balls of steel. Hey, folks, my name's Rene Enriquez, and you are watching Uncensored. We're going to go through this step by step of each member that's included in my book, The Mexican Mafia Encyclopedia, right? All these individuals are validated Mexican Mafia members. Most of them are deceased. A lot of them I did not know. And we're going to go through each individual and tell you little anecdotes about them if I have them and I have personal experience with them. The first individual on the upper left is Joseph Rebel Barnaday. I did not know this individual. He was way before my time and gone before my time. I believe Mundo said that he was eliminated at some point, but I did not know this guy. Did not know him, never met him. I heard a couple of things about him, and it's through Mundo that I heard him, like way before my time. I think it was even before Mundo's time. I'm not sure, though. Don't quote me on that. The next guy is David Popeye Barron. We all know about David. Popeye, right? This is the real Popeye. In fact, he was in San Quentin. I've shown pictures of him and talked about him in episodes before, and we're going to be doing an episode on him and Bat soon. This is the real cartel connection right here. A lot of people have talked about cartel connections in the past, but the real initial cartel connection came from Popeye. Popeye was at a nightclub in Mexico called Christine's. He was attending a function with the Arellano Felix family when Chapo Guzman sent a squad of hitmen in to kill the Arellanos. Popeye, with no commitment and no ties to these individuals because they were his friends, picked up an AK from one of the fallen assailants and took out a few of them, defending the Arellano Felix brothers, allowing them and affording them the opportunity to escape out the back of the nightclub. For that showing of loyalty and fierceness, they made him part of the upper echelon of that organization. In fact, he was the key enforcer, and he brought Bat along, and Bat brought along all the homies from Logan Red Steps. This was the first international agreement between a cartel and the Mexican Mafia, brought about by Popeye Barron and later Bat Marquez. Bat Marquez didn't hold as high a status, but we're going to talk about that in the episode. But Popeye was well respected, didn't do dope, was straight business, and was a straight killer. This guy had multiple notches on his belt. In fact, he's got a tattoo on his stomach that has a bunch of skulls surrounding the word M. And each skull represents one of his victims. Guy was a through and through killer. Through and through killer. But that's Popeye. I never met the guy. I never met him. I met Bat, but I didn't meet him. Let me remind you to hit that like button, hit the hype button, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. You can become a member of this channel and support that way, or you can buy the team a cup of coffee. Additionally, we are selling books on Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. Authentic, authorized, signed books by me. I'll leave a personal message as well. Get them while supplies last. We see a lot of individuals putting up content, doing A to Z of Mexican Mafia, and they talk about these guys, and 99.9% of their stuff is crap, right? So many mistakes in that because they base it off what law enforcement says solely, right? And there's a standard for validation, right? For me, there is, right? When Cardenales validates somebody, he's a Cardenal. When the Cardenales accept him as a Cardenal, he's a Cardenal. Just because he's an associate, a camarada, a shot caller, a llavero, was on the mesa, that don't mean shit. There's thousands of those crash test dummies everywhere. And content creators love to call them Cardenales, right? But we're not going to do that here. Mundo and I both knew most of these people. I can say that I knew a lot of these guys. A lot of them I did not know, though. And I'll tell you straight out when I don't know them. I'm not going to claim to know somebody if I don't know them. But we knew they were Cardenales, right? You know, one commenter said it best. He says, it's like that in the Native American community. If somebody says that they're Native American, it's not what they say. It's what tribe claims them. Because anybody can say anything. In fact, in SMY, we call them Hollywood Indians. They'd have blonde hair, blue eyes, and say they were Native American, and they'd be going to the sweat lodge. And it was like, wow, that guy is not Native American. And we knew it. And this one guy said it the truest, because I talked to a couple of guys that were righteous Native Americans. He says, it doesn't matter what they say. It's the tribe that claims them. Not because they say they're from a specific tribe or they lived on the res. And that's no shot at anybody, but I'm just telling you how it really is. Well, it's like that in the Mexican Mafia, too. If the Mexican Mafia doesn't validate you, then you're not validated. Because in the past, people could get validated for passing lines, having an address in their phone book, corresponding with somebody, and you were validated. And like I said, there are tens of thousands of crash test dummies out there that have been validated. That means nothing. You hear these guys, I pro from a 180, level 4. That means nothing. That's a design of a prison. That's just the design of a prison. That's all that means. Active. I'm active. I parole from one. Don't mean nothing. There's tens of thousands of dummies paroling from yards. That don't make them anybody. It seems like that's their bona fides, right? People claim that. I'm active. I have this, or, I parole from an SNY 180, level 4. It means nothing. Nothing. That's just level 4 is the level of security in the prison, and 180 is the design of the gun wearer's view from the gun tower. 180-degree view, right? 180-degree gun coverage in the housing units. That's what it means. It's a lot like that, right? People claiming to be stuff, or people saying other people are Mexican Mafia members, and they're really not. The next guy on our list is Frank Moose Bazur. I think Mundo mentioned somewhere in this book that this is the first guy to flip in Folsom. This is the first guy to flip in Folsom, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. Again, it's been 15 years since we wrote the manuscript in this book, and it's a lot, and I haven't read it since. We might start reading that soon here too. I'll give you snippets of it and create episodes out of it. So that'll refresh my memory. But I didn't know this guy. I did not know him at all. The next guy is Fernando Fernie Bermudez. Fernie from Dogpatch. I knew Fernie. I met him at Pelican Bay. That's where I met him, in the visiting room. I didn't see him anywhere else other than the visiting room on a few occasions, and I had conversations with him. And I was okay with him because he was so close with Daryl Baca, and Daryl Baca was my cellie. In fact, I used to get a black tarry substance, and I would give some to Daryl to send to him all the time. And yeah, he was a substance abuser too. But he was a well-respected cardenal, dignified, very quiet, didn't get engaged into politics. Fernie was never politicked on. Not one time that I knew in my career that he was politicked on. And I never heard of him being politicked on after I left the organization. That's how squeaky clean he was. I'm sure he had skeletons like everybody else. I think if you push a button on anybody's life and you watch every second, every moment of their thoughts, their deeds, their acts, you would be shocked. Think about yourself, right? And that's true for anybody. So even though Fernie was squeaky clean, I'm sure he had skeletons like everybody else, right? But he was well respected in the organization. I'll say that. I'm not trying to put dirt on the guy. He recently died of natural causes. They give him a big send out. Mexican Mafia funded it. So that's Fernie from Dogpatch. The next guy is Willie Boy Bermudez. In fact, I was in San Quentin. This guy was a cardenal, right? He goes to the yard. He's tired. He's done. He's done with the Mexican Mafia politics. And he tells the cardenales on the yard, hey, I'm finished. I'm done. I don't want to be a cardenal no more. Hey, I'm finished. I'm done. I don't want to be a cardenal no more. And they're in shock. Like, what? What the hell are you talking? He says, no, I'm dead serious. I'm going to go to the shower. I'm going to go over there, send whoever you're going to send, and they can get it right now. Willie Boy was unarmed. Unarmed. And he took it. They most certainly had a knife on that yard. And somebody pulled it out. They sent a cardenal over there, and boom, 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 boom. Stabbed him up in the shower. And he took it. He survived. He went on to live his best life after that. I don't know if he paroled or what. I heard he had passed away, but I'm not sure about that. But that's the only cardenal I ever heard that did that. Now, I mean, that took balls of steel. You got to admit, that took balls of steel. Because I'm not sure I would have did that. I'm just being real. They got big knives on those yards. But he did it, and he took it. The next guy in the second row on the left, starting from the left, is William Roland Berry from Watts. In fact, he went to a PC yard. When they integrated the yards, he went to CMC East, and that was a PC yard. It was designated a PC yard. But because he was there, he declared it a good yard and allowed the PCs to stay. That's a little known secret that nobody knows. He's up for parole. He's trying to say he's not a Mexican Mafia member, but he is. He is a Mexican Mafia member, validated Mexican Mafia member, still active in the organization. I'm sure he wants to make parole, but I don't think that he'll ever make parole being a validated cardenal as he is now. The next guy in the list is Sleepy Betancourt. In fact, it was Derroteo who executed a CDC officer in the maintenance in San Quentin. A CDC officer came upon him. They were drunk, him and another individual, and they beat him to death with pipes and 2x4s. I think that's what they used. They eliminated the CDC officer because he made a beef about them being drunk. He dropped out of the organization later in life and was an SNY Yards, and he's now deceased. He died incarcerated. He never got out of prison again. They were going to let him out after that. But yeah, that's who Sleepy was. I think he was from up north, San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. The next guy on the list is Arthur. This is Conejo from Primera Flats. Straight killer. He was a killer for the organization. He documented the story in a book, and he's one of the evangelists for Victory Outreach. He has a story that Mexican Mafia members pulled up on him and pulled a gun, showed him a gun, and told him if he was real, he got a pass, and something, I'm paraphrasing what happened, but I'm going to tell you this. They weren't Mexican Mafia members. Not at all. They could have been Sureños or somebody who recognized him, but if Cardenales went there with a gun and they pulled it out, he would have been done. And then he would have identified the Cardenales too, which he never did, right? He just said he was at a location, a car wash, I believe it was. They pulled up on him, and they had a gun, and they told him, if you're real, then you're cool. If not, then we'll come back or something of that nature. I'm paraphrasing again. But that's his story. I'm not calling the guy a liar. I'm just saying they weren't Cardenales. Cardenales would have handled it. In fact, I was sent to eliminate this guy one time when I paroled in 1988. That's going to be an episode. But I was sent to eliminate him. And I think God was with him. I know God was with him because I was ready. And he was there. I just couldn't find a place. All right. The next guy is Evarito Blanco Blanco. That's his name. But they called him Blanco. His nickname was his last name, Blanco. He was eliminated. I remember Mundo speaking about it. I never knew this guy. I never encountered him. But Mundo details in the encyclopedia that this guy was eliminated, and I can't remember the reason why. A lot of these people are before my time. I didn't even know the guy preceding this guy. I was just sent to eliminate him. Never met him. Don't care to meet him. That's just, it was just my job. It was just my job, right? So I never met Evarito Blanco Blanco, way before my time. So let's go to the next guy. Little Angel Bonilla. Never met this guy. Never met him. But he was a cardenal way before my time. Let's go to the third row, lower left. That is Richard Buck Buchanan, also known as Cheeks. Here's the thing, is that he was always considered a bum. Like, he was a bum. He didn't have no hustle. He was a dope-bean. He was riding around on a bicycle. Then all of a sudden, the organization starts forming and they start claiming territories, and he becomes King Farouk over there in San Diego. But he was always a bum. In fact, there's one instance where a guy named Dedos says he called him out in RJD and Richard J. Donovan, that Dedos happened to be on the lista, and he called out Richard Buchanan, told him he was a coward, just like straight disrespected him. But I kind of question the veracity of that statement, because Dedos had already been cooperating with law enforcement, and there's no way they would have put him in the cell with Cheeks, right? Or Buck, Richard Buchanan. You may remember the episode on Jessica Chavez, the corrupt CEO who's having affairs with inmates and parolees, and that Richard Buchanan went and picked up a parolee that was harassing her and stalking her. That's the same person, right? That's the same person we're talking about here. He's currently incarcerated, serving a life sentence. I think it's a life sentence. And yeah, he's in prison. The next guy is Frankie Chivo Buelna. That's Chivo. That's Frankie B. I knew him as Frankie B. I never knew him as Chivo. He was from Merced, actually. He's in Northern California, but he claimed Primera Flats. I met Chivo, or Frankie B, at DBI, at the Dual Vocational Institution. And he's one of the guys I used to do hits for. I liked him, really laid-back guy, totally easygoing. He wasn't heavy-handed. He didn't flex. None of that stuff, right? Just a laid-back cardenal. He was on the yard with Rocky Luna. Me, him, Rocky Luna, Kiki Mays, and Gator from Florencia were there. All four of those guys were Mexican Mafia members. And this is at a time when they were, once in a while, let a Mexican Mafia member out to the yard, and DVI happened to be it. Frankie was eliminated in Pomona, California, quite a few years back, on the orders of Daryl Castrejon. For what? I don't know. Frankie B wasn't a rat cow or none of those things, right? And he was eliminated. They shot him at a place called Characters Bar and Grill. And Dashing D, or Daryl Castrejon, went on the run for that. There's some rumors that Daryl Castrejon was executed. He was working for the Sonora cartel, or one of these cartels. He was a plaza boss, and that he offended the cartels, and they flayed him alive and then hung him. That's the rumor. But there has been no DNA confirmation. In fact, The comparison photo that they utilized to identify him didn't even look like him. So I think he might still be alive, or he may be gone. Who knows? The next person on this list is Salvador Mon Buenostro. That's Mon from Jardín. I never liked him, to be honest, right? I met him in the county jail. He was arrogant. He strutted when he walked. I never felt accepted by him when I was there. And ultimately, I ended up whacking this guy in the attorney room. And it's funny because once he understood he was in the hat and that they were trying to whack him, he started treating me cool. Like he started treating me like I was his brother, but I never felt that from him. It's just this plastic feeling, like when you know somebody doesn't like you, right? He didn't like me, and I didn't like him. So when they gave me the chance to whack him, I jumped at it. Jumped at it. I didn't care that he didn't do anything. I just saw like, F this fool, you know? That's how I felt at the time, and that's what it was. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Didn't like the guy. I saw a chance to knock him down and knocked him down. And unfortunately for him, he didn't do anything wrong. Somebody was just kind of trying to get rid of him, and I just happened to be the guy, the instrument used to knock him down, me and Topo Peters. I got a life without the possibility of parole sentence for that case, right? I got a 667.7, which is the Habitual Criminal Act, life without the possibility of parole for 20 years, which is the Habitual Criminal Act, life without the possibility of parole for 20 years for whacking that guy. The next guy is George Buckethead Bustamante. That's little George, so everybody knows. There are two George Bustamantes. One is the father, who isn't a carnal, and this guy here, George Buckethead Bustamante, who is a carnal. He's a made guy, but his status is really questionable. Some 302s, FBI 302s popped up where he was debriefing for the FBI. A lot of people say he's no good. Other people say he's good. It's really dependent on who you get around. I heard that he's quasi-retired. He's been put on the shelf. I don't know the actual status of his membership. I knew he was in question a couple of years ago, though, and they were talking about eliminating him. The next guy on the list is Robert Purdy Bob from Colton. He was from Colton, Purdy Bob from Colton. In fact, here's the thing, right? He was in San Bernardino Jail, Riverside County Jail, and he got into a dispute with a black guy over toilet paper, and the black guy stabbed him up horribly, almost killed him. This was a couple decades ago, right? We had heard about it. After that, he disappeared. He disappeared. He ended up defecting. I don't know if he's alive or deceased now, but I know he was kind of looked upon badly after that he allowed that black guy to stab him up. He never regained his composure after that and ultimately ended up defecting from the organization. On the last row, we have Gilbert Gibby Cabral. I remember Gibby. He was a wallflower. He's from Redlands. And he has a big family. He's got like three. He's one of the dynasties. We're going to do episodes on the dynasties too, the and nepotism. So Gibby Cabral was a quiet dude. I didn't have anything against him, right? Nothing at all. I never had a negative encounter with him. I never politicked on him. He never politicked on me that I know of. But he was really quiet. You know, he'd go to the visiting room. He was up a couple times. They shot him down. And then all of a sudden, after I dropped out, I heard he got made. And it kind of shocked me because it just didn't seem like he was material because he stayed so quiet, right? And I didn't know that he had done anything for the organization. I don't know why he got made. And it may be because of the next individual, Robert Negro Cabral, from the same area out there. That's his uncle, actually. Robert Negro Cabral is Gibby's uncle, and he was a made member. I know that he is deceased now. I never met this guy, never knew him, but I heard a lot about him, right? He was a gangster. That's Gibby's uncle. The next guy on our list is Rudy Cheyenne Cadena. The next guy on our list is Rudy Cheyenne Cadena. That's him, Cheyenne. That's the individuals that the NF executed in Palm Hall. That's the only carnal that the NF has ever killed. And as much as they argue, because I'm going to get some comments saying, oh, you're lying, and why would I lie? The NF will never accept the fact that it never killed anything other than Cheyenne. And that's the absolute truth. They lost that war, and that's all there is to it. And I mean that with all due respect. They realize that. And the Mexican Mafia knows it. Everybody knows it. Cheyenne was executed by them, brutally stabbed, thrown over the third tier, where individuals were waiting, and they went down there and stabbed him some more until he died. The next individual in this picture is George Chapolin Carvajal. He was from Rancho San Pedro. RSP, never met the guy. He was incarcerated out there in Arizona, I believe it was. He took some of the mentality out there to Arizona. But there's another individual that preceded him. I never met this guy. I've seen some of his drawings, heard his name before, but never met him. And the last guy on our list today is Henry Indio Carlos. Henry Indio Carlos is from Sereno. And I also stabbed this guy. This was the incident, what I told you, in the criminal courts building downtown. I ended up stabbing Henry like 29, 30 times, and he survived. But he gangstered it. He gangstered it, like I told you. He wouldn't get in the gurney. He stood up, walked out of the holding tank, and looked at me as he's walking out, and he said, "You ain't done shit." So I got nothing but respect for Henry Carlos, right? He weathered that storm. He survived that storm, and I didn't, you know. So it says who's more of a gangster, him or me? He was. And angry man. He's always been an angry man. Controversial, too. A difficult, hard-headed, obdurate guy, right? But he's a true believer. You got to give him that. He's a true believer. Leave a comment. Hype the video. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Support the channel by watching the videos in their entirety. It's so important. And hype, 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 hype. Have a wonderful day. All right. Peace out. Stay safe.